It doesn't matter how big the ministry is. It doesn't matter the impact that you're making. It is never okay to cover something up to protect the image of a ministry. And that's ultimately what happened. And so the stand that we're taking, the most important thing that we're saying is that we're willing to lay everything down on the line. Again,
my first knowledge of any abuse was in November of 2020. And Susie called me and said there had been an incident at my granddaughter's preschool. And she told me that something had happened where a little boy touched her and her friend.
Hello, Faith Builders, and welcome. In this video, we'll explore how the Daystar scandal unfolded. You'll hear insights from Joni Lamb, Jonathan Lamb, and his wife, Susie. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, as we'll also reveal a secret recording of their meeting with Jimmy Evans. Stay tuned.
We know there's stuff out there circulating and accusations that are coming from people that don't even know who you are, don't know you. And we, as your friends sitting here today, we have worked with you every day for years. We know you better than anybody out there that feels like they have the right to do what they're doing. So the girls and I, we just wanted to sit with you today, and we wanted to ask you some of those questions that people are wanting answers. And so we just wanted to have our coffee and just ask you those questions.
Okay.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, like Cindy said, there are those allegations out there from people who really don't know much about what's going on. One of the questions is, when did you hear about the alleged abuse?
My first knowledge of any abuse was in November of 2020. And Susie called me and said there had been an incident at my granddaughter's preschool. And she told me that something had happened where a little boy touched her and her friend. And so she called me and asked me, would I go to the school with her? And I said, absolutely. So I went with her to the school. We reported it to the school. And of course, you know, I was there to encourage, and as I would for any child, but especially my granddaughter.
Of course, yes.
And so that was the incident that happened. And yet, you know, what's being written is just taken out of context. That was the incident that happened in 2020, and I was there. And Susie actually called me to go there.
Okay, so the word about you covering up, there's no truth to that.
You know, when I started hearing that, I thought to myself, what am I covering up? I've covered up nothing.
Right.
And so I never covered up anything. Now, there was another incident written about that was an incident that happened at our family retreat. This was in 2021.
Okay.
We were all staying in this house together, and again, we do that once a year. And my two older grandchildren were staying in an upstairs bedroom, and it was a long room, and there was a bunk bed on one side, and there was another bunk bed on the other side. And so my grandson was talking about that he had the city view, and he was saying his sister had the beach view.
Okay.
And so one afternoon he was talking about that, and who they call Pete was in the room holding a 1-year-old baby boy, okay? And so Pete says, oh, so you've got the city view, and everybody was talking about, well, I'd rather have the beach view, and my grandson saying, no, I like the city view. And Pete said, well, I like the city view too. And so he said, I want to see your city view. So they went up the stairs.
The grandson and Pete, and Pete had the baby.
The grandson, Pete, and the baby. Now, all those details have been left out.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they went up the steps, and again, I was there. I heard this whole conversation. And around the same time, or maybe just a few minutes after, I don't know exactly when, but my granddaughter went up to the room and went over to her side while Pete and the baby and my grandson were looking out the window at the city view.
Okay.
And she proceeded to put her bathing suit on. Well, about the time she started to put it on, Jonathan comes running up the stairs
Her dad.
and says, "What are you doing in here?" While she's changing, what are you doing, And Pete was like, "Well, I'm sorry. I don't even know if he actually saw anything."
Because he had his back to her.
Because he was holding the baby and the 8-year-old was there, so he said, "I'm so sorry," and left.
Now, let's also hear the other side. What really happened on the same day of their family retreat? I'm keeping this video brief. It's mostly focused on their interview. Pay close attention, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments.
So the night my child told me, that evening, it would have been around 5:30ish in the evening, when my daughter told me, I called. I was in shock, asked her a few questions, and I called Joni for help. And I said, I'm going to go to the police. And she said, no, bring her to me tomorrow morning, and then we'll go to the school. I was restless and not happy because I wanted to go to the police for some action. But I thought, okay, if this is wise counsel, I'll listen. And, many times I don't bring up extremely painful things to my parents because I really don't want to hurt my mom and dad. So I left that part out thinking I can tell them eventually. But so the next day, Jonathan, you took her to your mom.
Yeah, I took her to my mom's house. My mom wanted to meet with her privately to discuss what had happened. She wanted to verify the same thing and get her to tell her that. And looking back on it now, I'm just like I shouldn't have left her alone with my mom, just because I couldn't have imagined my mom could have done anything nefarious at that point. It was just hard for me to imagine that. But
We don't know if she actually did.
well, all we know is that ever since that conversation with my mom, she hasn't opened up one word about it.
Yeah, so because I met them at the school.
Yeah.
We met the teachers. The teachers were peaceful, loving, calm. They said there's no male, because my daughter the night before had told me, I asked her boy or a girl.
Yeah.
She said boy. Okay, how tall? I was trying to gauge an age maybe. And so she said taller than daddy. So I said, I didn't know what leading questions were. I said, did something happen in the bathroom, in the cafe? And she's 5 years old. She's nodding along. She goes, yeah. I said, was there a friend who saw anything? Mm-hmm. So I'm maybe in real time texting, the family, trying to piece together. At this point, Daystar was not a consideration. I just wanted the truth. So when we go talk to the teachers, they tell us even security is female, which I knew. Everything was okay. And so and our daughter, this was the crazy part. She wanted to stay at school.
Right.
And so to stay at school, she started saying, oh, the boy's gone. Everything's fine. And so I started to process this with my core group, the family. Because, I'm scared to leave her there, but she wants to be there. She's happy. She has her best friends there. And there's no male. Now, this is very, very important. The school it was a preschool, a pre-K. The boys are aged 3 to 5. There are no big, strong boys. So I think it's so painful for them to even insinuate that a possibly 3 to 5-year-old may be more guilty than a grown man, Pete. Anyway, I'll refrain from that part right now. So that was the whole process in that short season when we went. So Jonathan and I went to the police after we filed, got good at counsel from them, and they did their due diligence. The police did what they had to do. There was no suspect, so they closed the case, rightfully so. I was sad because I needed answers, but I had to trust God with the timing. Even my mom and dad had to walk me through that process, so you have to trust God. And then we started noticing that she's happy at school. She's okay at home. She's not wanting to go to Daystar. So much so that we had to hire a nanny because she would not want to go. Now, working together with the family all the time, being on TV, there were certain times we'd just have to take her, and then she would follow me to my studio. She didn't want to stay in the family green room anymore. But nothing was handled perfectly. It is messy. And that's how it was.
So that was interesting. She made it sound like she talked to after she went to the school, when clearly I took her to my mom's house. She went into the house to talk with my mom privately. And my mom confirmed that she said everything that she had told Susie about the abuse. So now she's lying to say that we didn't actually tell her anything. We went to the school. So she changed her story completely.
One of the reasons we didn't put a focus there when you were telling our story is because the school they keep pulling the school back into it to distract people. The school has no part in the cover-up story. The school was done, case closed, and moved on. Then different things started to rise up with people saying things to me and suspicions at Daystar. That's a whole other story. So every time they bring up the school, it's a distraction. In conversations with my daughter at that point, because I was scared for her to go to school, there might have just been random conversations with my child, like, do you have a friend with you? Oh yeah. She just was going along with everything I was saying because she was terrified. She did not want to get in. When other people got involved, when she was just talking to me alone, she was very graphic with what she shared about where she was touched with her body. But after that, she did not. And I'm learning that these are normal behaviors with children. You cannot blame a scared child.
You've heard the story from both sides. Share your thoughts in the comments. In the meantime, stay tuned as we dive into the incident at the beach.
Fast forward to 2021, and we had our family retreat. There was nothing else said about that event happening. There was nothing said to my husband or myself, my late husband. And so we're at the beach, and on this particular day, my grandson was talking about his city view because they're the two older grandchildren. They were up in a room. It was a long bunk room, and there was a bunk bed on one side, and then there was another bunk bed on the other side. And so my grandson was talking about his sister had the beach view and he had the city view. And so who they're calling Pete heard my grandson talking and said, oh, I like the city view. Because everybody else was saying they like the beach view. Personally, I like the beach view. And so he said Pete was holding his 1-year-old child. And he said, to my grandson, well, show me your city view. So they went up the steps. I was in the room, heard this, and went up the steps and proceeded to look out the window to see the beach view and then to see the city view. And at some point, my granddaughter was up there on her side of the room and put her bathing suit on. Well, downstairs, Susie said to my son, go check on. I remember thinking that's kind of weird, and the way she said it. And so my son went running up the stairs, and when he did, he saw that his daughter was putting on the bathing suit, and Pete was standing there holding a 1-year-old baby, and my 8-year-old grandson was there, and they were looking out the window at the city view. Well, Jonathan says, what are you doing up here? She's putting her bathing suit on. Well, Pete turns around and said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, and comes downstairs. And it was just weird the way the whole thing went down.
Wait a minute. Did you notice any change in Joni's speech? It seems different from what she said when discussing the same issue with her friends. I'm about to play the video now. If you spot anything, feel free to share in the comments.
Right. And so I never covered up anything. Now, there was another incident written about that was an incident that happened at our family retreat. This was in 2021. Okay. We were all staying in this house together, and again, we do that once a year. And my 2 older grandchildren were staying in an upstairs bedroom. And it was a long room, and there was a bunk bed on one side, and there was another bunk bed on the other side. And so my grandson was talking about that he had the city view, and he was saying his sister had the beach view.
Okay.
And so one afternoon, he was talking about that, and who they call Pete was in the room holding a 1-year-old baby boy, okay? And so Pete says, oh, so you've got the city view, and everybody was talking about, well, I'd rather have the beach view, and my grandson saying, no, I like the city view. And Pete said, well, I like the city view too. And so he said, I want to see your city view. So they went up the stairs.
The grandson and Pete, and Pete had the baby.
The grandson, Pete, and the baby. Now, all those details have been left out.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they went up the steps, and again, I was there. I heard this whole conversation. And around the same time, or maybe just a few minutes after, I don't know exactly when, but my granddaughter went up to the room and went over to her side while Pete and the baby and my grandson were looking out the window at the city view.
Okay.
And she proceeded to put her bathing suit on. Well, about the time she started to put it on, Jonathan comes running up the stairs
Her dad.
and says, what are you doing in here while she's changing? You know, what are you doing? You know, and Pete was like, well, I'm sorry. I don't even know if he actually saw anything.
Because he had his.
I have no words. I have no words. Where do you begin? Everything is a lie. Everything is a lie. How would I just know? If he was on the 3rd floor, how would I just know to tell Jonathan to go up there? She was not anywhere. So I was in the main area because Jonathan and our room was over there on that 1st floor. There's a basement below where Marcus and Joni were. There's a game room area down there, and that's where they were. So we finished breakfast, and Pete had the baby. Again, you know, my heart is to always protect the identity of a baby or a child that does not need to be mentioned. Obviously, they took that, and I thought they'd be happy, but it's okay. This innocent little life was there in one arm, and he was doing something in the kitchen, and I was talking to my daughter, and she said, Mommy, I want to go swim. And I said, okay, go upstairs, put on your swimsuit, come back to Mommy. And the second I said that, I mean, his eyes just kind of got big, and he goes, ah, and he started to follow her. Yes, that baby was right there, and he just started to follow. The baby was a non-factor. The baby was not fussy. It was one little road. That was our view. One little road. There was nothing. They have to come up with colorful words, fussy baby, city view, beach view. None of those things. The truth is so simple. He saw her, he goes, ah, and he started to follow her up. And I felt such panic in her eyes because I just knew if it was me stopping it, they'd be like, Susie, look what you're doing again. And that's what, today they have to admit that he was caught in that room because of Jonathan's crazy reaction, like very strong. But all I can do is tell the truth before God. He followed her up there. Panic set in my heart, and I told Jonathan, and he ran. Joni and Marcus were in the basement. They heard nothing. There was no conversation. My son did not invite him up there. My son was not there.
I'm on the 1st floor in our room. So our room is just on the other side of the kitchen. I was brushing my teeth when Susie came. It is falling apart. So I dropped my toothbrush and I ran up to the 3rd floor, and I got up there. The first thing I notice is I lock eyes on my daughter. She doesn't have any clothes on. And so immediately I start screaming, what are you doing? To Pete. Pete is by the window. Whenever I started to scream, obviously my eyes initially locked with so I screamed, what are you doing? And he immediately goes to saying, I'm so sorry. At least 50 times. So he was not next to he didn't have his hands on her.
If I could, just address if it's, if people want to say, well, if his hands were not on you, why are you making a big deal? I would like to explain the pattern, because in 2020 on that beach, on a different beach vacation in 2020, our leadership retreat of Daystar, Pete himself told me that my child walked on him in the bathroom, full frontal naked, and saw him fully nude. At that point, I didn't do anything because obviously I checked on her and she seemed okay. It is weird. One time he's fully nude. Next time she's fully nude. We did talk to, I forget his position, but he was in the FBI, and he talked so many things checked off the list. It's part of the grooming thing. Yeah. So it's like all we were asking is to get this looked at and not just play it off as like it's nothing.
After everything that happened, I asked myself, what happened next? Based on what we just heard, this isn't something that could be easily settled within the family, especially when it involves child abuse. Let's hear from Joni first.
What happened was Marcus was alive, and so we just met together as a family. He talked to everyone, and clearly nothing happened.
Yeah.
Speaking of Pastor Marcus, first I want to say thanks for the opportunity. You've always been easy to talk to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just,
Very transparent.
very transparent. And so I want to ask you, because Susie said that you and Pastor Marcus covered it up. Did you cover it up?
You know, Marcus isn't here, but I will just say absolutely a lie. I never covered up anything. I wouldn't cover up anything. Marcus didn't cover up anything. And so again, this is a narrative that was written by some low-level blogger who knows nothing, never heard the other side of the story,
Yeah.
and is doing nothing but trying to destroy my family.
Sensationalize.
Yeah, that's what she does.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Well, the crazy part is that eventually we worked through that misunderstanding, and Jonathan and Susie ended up apologizing, and we prayed together. I mean, and it was a done deal.
Right.
And so the timing of later this coming out or being pulled up again out of the ashes when there's no validity to it just blew my mind. I'm like, what in the world?
First of all, first thing I want to say is that she minimized it to where it was like no big deal. The truth is it completely divided our family. I mean, we had a very intense hour-plus long meeting with my parents, and obviously it was super troubling because my father immediately declared Pete to be innocent and didn't even listen to me or Susie's concerns. He just said, I've been falsely accused before. I know what that feels like. And so again, he just went into protect and damage control mode. And, but yeah, we were completely divided as a family for, several weeks.
Yeah. So she's acting like it was not a big deal. From when Jonathan came down the stairs and Pete was behind, Pete was shivering, shaking. I really feel like Pete was so vulnerable. And it was me and Rebecca, JW, we were out by the patio and we were terrified. We had never seen Jonathan like this. So we go right down to the basement, and it was one of the most shocking moments of my life, because we go down to the basement. I was expecting, Marcus and Joni to say, whoa, okay, tell us your side. Let's get to, that's what I expected.
Right.
But it wasn't.
No.
It was immediate. I declare Pete innocent. And I remember the strength in just leaving my body, like, what is happening?
Yeah.
We felt so helpless.
Yeah.
We were made to sit down.
Such a traumatic time, and for them to have no empathy and just to completely dismiss it as nothing.
Well, because so before this vacation, to give people a little more context, a lot of other things have been happening at Daystar where a child was scared.
Yeah.
He would enter the room and she would just hide and shake. And, other family members told me he was kissing her when I was in there, and she was terrified. So a lot of incidents were building up to where I finally, when I was alone with Miss Denise Boggs, got to confide in her. And she said, oh, wow, this is looking this way. I know you don't want to go there, put your mind there, because you could, you're taking the weight of this family.
Right.
But I remember that conversation, but we have to talk about some things.
Right.
So on this vacation, I was honestly even scared to go, but she said, just be extra vigilant. For people who wonder why we would allow our child on the third floor while we're on the first floor, it was a pattern. Every year on vacation, the girls wanted beachfront rooms. And we were told, this is your sacrifice unto God. Take whatever. So back kitchen room, guest room, whatever room we would just take.
Yeah.
And the second floor had the really nice beachfront rooms. Third floor had the bunk beds. So it made sense for the kids. And, looking back, obviously I would do things differently. But back then we were like, okay, we'll just take this little road facing room, city view room. It was a huge deal. We go in that room. First, Marcus doesn't allow Rebecca and JW in there, locks the door. He's talking for 40 minutes about how we are destroying Daystar. The enemy wants to destroy Daystar. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm here for my child. This has nothing to do with Daystar. What is going on? And I kept waiting. Okay, soon I'll have a chance to express all the things that have built up to this point. And, Joni completely detached from me. I could just see her frustration and anger. I felt very disconnected for the first time, really, from her. I thought she would be like a lioness. You know, I really thought she would really have my back. So that was really a hard thing. But so Marcus goes on and, you know, then yells at everyone but me. He said, "You get out of Daystar, and you get out of Daystar." But he didn't yell at me. But then he also pulled up a seat next to Pete and said, "You know, I'm with you." So we were just sitting there kind of vulnerable. Then Becca, JW come in the room, and we talk some more. And he says, we all need to pray and we need to forgive each other. And, you know, we have such just a way of complying always that we did that. But of course we were in turmoil on the inside. That's why after all of that prayer, we went out on the beach, me, Jonathan, JW, Rebecca, and our kids, and we were just out there for hours trying to process all of this. But see, the way Marcus and Joni did it is that, okay, so we normalize things. You go back to golfing with him tomorrow. You have coffee with her. These things were told to us. And she told me multiple times, I need to apologize to Pete's wife for what I've done. And for the first time, I started to push back and say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And thank God Rebecca had called Denise Boggs. We started talking to Denise. If everything was okay and we just apologized, then why did they send us to Denise? They told Denise to get my social media under control because I was escalating, because I was posting scriptures, because I was broken on the inside. Right. And they knew that if we weren't sent to Denise, I would have probably ended up back at the police or done something else out of their control. So that's why we were sent, because I'm living with my child. They're outside the situation. I'm living with a child that's terrified and in fear. So for me, this is my reality, for us. And I just kept holding on to God. You're my father. You're going to set things right. I just never dreamed things would turn out the way they did, because then we, you know, if there's photos of us on the rest of the trip, we did separate dinners and stuff. It was very broken and awkward, but we did our best to just be nice. I was always reaching out to Pete's wife to make sure she's okay, because this is crazy. You know, everything is crazy. Our children, we moved to the movie room right by us, which, you know, Joni wasn't not okay with, but we did move them there. So we come back and we didn't even talk to Pete and his wife because it was so broken for days. And then Pete's wife came and said, "You're breaking my heart. What are you doing?" And I reverted back to my nature as I love the Lord. I shouldn't be this way. But they're using now. One of the things that Marcus Rogers said is that they showed him a binder full of like text messages and comments on their Instagram photos of me being loving, kind. Jonathan would golf with him for work, and that's their evidence that nothing happened, and that's pure evil.
And yeah, not only are we all family, but we all work together. We're in the same building during work hours, and
have to get along.
You know, my mother and father basically preached into us like family unity is like on the level of like godliness, almost like you've just got to have family unity above everything else. So with that, you know, it's like you have to put behind whatever concerns or struggles you might have, and you just have to work towards unity, because that's what God.
There had been some very peculiar things that have happened at this particular trip. I remember when we were at the grocery store, all the family was there, because when we always go to the grocery store and get food for breakfast and that kind of thing. And I remember Susie was standing in line and she began to murmur under her breath and start talking about a man that was behind her. And she was getting angrier and angrier, and we were like, what's going on? And she, she said, he was looking at me, in the store. And the man is like on his phone, not knowing what in the world she's saying or doing. We were just trying to calm her down. So it was just a weird dynamic that was going on with her from the beginning.
Yeah, I don't appreciate my mom.
It's okay.
Painting the picture that Susie's a little crazy.
Okay.
That's just
it's okay.
A total distraction of trying to take away from the main story to hurt her credibility.
You know, it's funny because a few friends texted me, they saw this stuff, and they were like, we don't know if we should be upset or we should laugh. This is laughable.
It's laughable.
But the truth is, when I first heard it, it was obviously painful, because it's such a stupid, none of this happened. She's making up things. Again, I don't want to keep pulling it back to that, but it remains that all these words that you say to paint me in a picture so you can for self-preservation, you have to answer to our King Jesus for this. And I understand her mentality. her thought, the way she justifies all of this is, you know what, I'll say this now because it helps me now, and later I'll repent and I'll be okay. And it doesn't work like that. You that's manipulating God. You cannot manipulate God. I hope and pray she takes responsibility and repents for that. It is not.
So now you're in trouble with her.
Now you're
Why are you in trouble?
I'm not-
You're making me some bad guy.
I'm
I
not
said
in trouble
you
with her.
can
I'm
be.
just,
She said
Just
no,
speak
you
your
are
mind.
bad.
I'm
you are
telling.
bad, Susie. You've got him by the balls, and you know it. And
Wow,
that's
babe.
exactly what
Babe, they're
you do.
really scary. They're saying horrible
no,
things.
no. That's not
I've
the
got
case
you
at
by
all.
the balls.
And other people
Who
see it. You
talks
see it in
like
your eyes
this?
right now, and you look at him like
Who
you gave him a
talks?
look.
I gave him a look of pity. Like I'm trying to. You're cornering him. This is so evil. What is happening?
No, what's evil
And
is
you're
you.
telling me that I've
What's
got him
evil
by the
is you and the
balls.
spirit
So-
that's driving you, and the things you've done, the things you
Horrible.
said, the things you've written, the people that you've talked to, the people who've told me things you said that are disgusting.
Like what?
That is what evil.
Like what?
You know, Susie.
What? I don't.
You
Tell me.
know. Oh, please, don't even try it.
What are
okay?
this?
Just
What are?
don't.
Can you tell me what these things are?
No, I'm not, because you know what they are.
I have
I
no
don't.
idea.
Jimmy, you were there in the meeting with the children. You heard what all she said. You told me what
Tell
she
me
said.
some of the things.
We don't.
Well,
Why do we have to repeat what you said? You know what you said.
Susie, the thing is,
Everything
the
I said
whole
in
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more updates.